This week, we visit the entertainment mecca of the Pilanesberg for highlights of the Sun City 400.
The world-renowned Sun City Resort is a stunning complex in the heart of the African bushveld. Sun City attracts tourists from all over the world and once a year also plays host to a round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship. This year, the Sun City 400 was round 5 of the ABSA series, with race headquarters at the main entrance to the sprawling complex, making a colourful scenario. Within easy reach of Pretoria and Johannesburg and centres in Northwest Province, the Sun City 400 is one of the most popular events on the calendar, with enthusiasts turning the race into a holiday weekend.
Behind the glitz and glamour, the Sun City 400 is one of the toughest races on the ABSA calendar, and Production Vehicle Championship leader Duncan Force was anticipating a tough weekend.
It's similar to Botswana. The conditions are pretty much what we'll get, what we got up in Botswana, so very tough, very hard on the vehicles.
The first shots fired in anger were on the Donaldson Prologue, which determines start positions for the race. The Prologue is a race within a race with seeded crews in the production and special vehicle categories split into groups. Crews are allowed to choose their start position, and to level the playing field, start order for the speed groups is on a rotation basis.
The Donaldson Prologue was run over a route of 55 kilometers and ran alongside the R565 main road before doubling back to the finish on the R556, which leads to the Sun City complex.
After a podium finish on the Toyota 1000 Desert Race in Botswana, the young Pretoria-based crew of Christian Deploy and Henk Janse van Vieren were on a roll in the RFS BMW X3. Being first on the road on the Prologue has its advantages as well as disadvantages, but a clean run saw Deploy and Janse van Vieren setting a blistering pace.
There was something of a surprise when Willem Vos and Werner Weiss took second place in the Forces BMW X3. Vos and Weiss hail from Rustenburg and took full advantage of local knowledge to finish only 16 seconds behind Deploy and Janse van Vieren. A season-best result saw Dion Venter and Ian Palmer a further 3 seconds behind in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux, with Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin the first of the big guns in the factory team Castrol Toyota Hilux.
The Ford Racing Ranger pair of Lance Woolrich and Ward Huxtable also came up with one of their best performances of the season and trailed the lead car by only 27 seconds. Woolrich is the son of former South African champion Neil Woolrich, and along with the likes of Deploy and Jason Venter, is one of a crop of young drivers starting to make their presence felt in the ABSA Championship. Hugo de Bruyn has a little more experience, and he and Henry Hugo continue to run a good form with 6th place in the McLaren XL Toyota. That left them just over a minute behind the leaders, with a comfortable cushion over championship leaders Vos and Howie, who didn't have a happy afternoon in the second team Castrol Toyota Hilux. Vos and Howie were 12 seconds clear of South African champions Jannie Visser and Jorgs Leroux, with Archie Rutherford and former Proteas fast bowler Vinniger Fani de Villiers making a guest appearance in the ABSA Off-Road Championship. 9th in the SA Warranties Nissan Navara. A strategically placed race cam showed Fani thoroughly enjoying himself alongside the experienced Rutherford, who switched to production cars after winning last year's Class P championship in the special vehicle category.
A solid performance took Louis Weichelt and Marek Besadenhout into the top 10 in the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser and saw them set the fastest time in Class D, with Dirk Pitter and Chris Klaassen setting the pace in Class E.
Back at race headquarters, the appearance of 3 privateer teams at the top of the production vehicle timesheets was a talking point. One of the surprises was Willem Vos, who predicted a dusty event with plenty of hazards.
Wil ons maar kyk, ons net sien waar is die wegspringposisies, waar gaan ons wegtrek. En dan ek dink die stof gaan 'n groot rol speel. En daar gaan baie papwiele wees, want dis baie klippe en goeder wat versteek is. Jy weet, om die draaie en goeder. So hou sommer baie versigtig ry tot die stof, tot jy bietjie die karre eers uitmekaar uit is.
Ford Racing's Woolridge was a happy young man, but the Prologue produced one little scare for him and Ward Huxtable.
Getting used to the terrain was very, very slippery because it was so dry. really battled at the start. But we got into a nice groove and we were able to keep it there. The car was performing really, really well. It was handling so nicely. We had one scary moment where we went on 2 wheels, but overall it was a really nice route, and Ward and I gelled well. He was on the notes the whole time, so it went really well.
A few surprises in the production vehicle prologue, but only 27 seconds separated the first 5 cars. The prologue also produced career best results for the top 3 crews.
Going into the Sun City 400, there was a tight situation at the top of the special vehicle category, with the Donaldson Prologue likely to play a major role in proceedings.
The time trial is going to be really important because your starting position tomorrow is going to be important. It's very, very dusty, super dusty, same route we used last year, and last year already it was dramatic, and they've had a very long dry winter, so yeah, the position that you're starting tomorrow is going to be pretty much close to where you're going to finish.
A little parental advice perhaps for a star of the future, but at the draw for start positions on the Donaldson Prologue Special Vehicle Championship, leaders Evan Hutchinson and Donnie Stassen in the Motorite Bat Venom chose to be first on the road, ahead of reigning South African champions Herman and Richard Solvald in the Elegant Fuel Bat. A run of form continued for Hutchinson and Stassen, who won the Toyota 1000 Desert Race in Botswana. The Botswana outing formed part of the Dakar Challenge, with Hutchinson and Stassen also winning a free entry into next year's Dakar Rally in South America.
In a tight finish, KwaZulu-Natal crew Lance Trethewey and Carl Wichmann were only 10 seconds behind Hutchison and Stassen. It was an impressive performance from a crew coming off a win in the KZN Regional Championship, with the pair 25 seconds ahead of Nick and Ryan Harper in the Motorite Revo 4x4. The Harpers were 12 seconds ahead of championship challengers Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson in the Atlas Copco Bat, with rookie driver Quinton and Kali Solvald completing the top 5 in the Elegant Fuel Bat.
A solid drive took another father and son crew in Nardus and Louis Alberts in 6th place, with the Rapsa Bat followed by the husband and wife pairing of Marius and Yolinda Fourie in the PHB Porter. The Fouries had 14 seconds in hand over another KwaZulu-Natal team in Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell, with crews able to build up a head of steam on sections where the route opened out.
Free State crew Peter Ruthven and Leander Pinard were another pair to carry good form into the Sun City 400. The Rubicon Racing Bat was around 90 seconds behind the leaders, and there was a healthy gap to Neil Mayer and Joseph Lewis, who came up with the best result of the season in the distinctively styled Liqui Moly Zarco Challenger.
Class B honours went to championship leaders Colin Matthews and Alan Smith in the Century Racing CR3. It was a close call for the pair, and problems changing a flat tyre saw them only 3 seconds clear of Kutsia and Sandra Labuskachny.
The last time Lance Trethewey raced at Sun City was more than 10 years ago. For the KwaZulu-Natal stalwart, second on the prologue was a happy return to the Pilanesberg, with Trethewey hoping to emulate Sister Marcel, who won the Sun City 400 in 2006 as a co-driver.
I raced there last in '96 on a bike in the National Off-Road Series, so it's been a while and I've enjoyed it. We had a good time trial, my navigator was brilliant. Carl, he was on the button, and it's both of us in the car. Without him, I can't go far.
In another tight leaderboard, there was less than a minute between the top 6, with 3 father and son combinations and a husband and wife pairing in the top 10.
A chilly but sunny winter's day greeted teams and spectators at the start of the Sun City 400, with Vinniger Fani a major attraction. Enthusiasts, family and friends mingled with crews, but there was an underlying air of tension and a new experience for Christian de Plooy and Henk Janssen van Vieren at the front of the field.
I think we don't feel too stressed. We're going to try and control the race from the front, and I think the pressure's on the other guys. And the strategy is just to keep it clean, you know, and not make any mistakes. It's going to be difficult for the other guys to come through the dust. So yeah, we're just going to keep it clean and keep a good pace up.
There was a ceremonial start to the race with competitors facing a short open section along the R556, which runs past the entrance to the Sun City complex. With less than 2 minutes separating the first 18 cars, the throngs of spectators were sure to be entertained to loads of action-packed racing in the dry and dusty conditions of the Pilanesberg. The 380-kilometer route ahead promised to produce plenty of drama.
The Sun City 400 was run over 2 laps of a 160-kilometer course, traversing the land of the Bakubung tribe, which means place of the hippo. The first 80 kilometers followed the prologue route through Mahopis Kraal towards Witrangi.
There was never any doubt that the dust factor would play a major role in the race. Helicopter footage amply illustrates the plume of dust thrown up by the race leaders Christian de Ploy and Henk Janssen van Vieren in the RFS BMW. With a clear road ahead of them, de Ploy and Janssen van Vieren were in the box seats.
With the dust factor, the early stages of the race were never going to be easy for Willem Vos and Van der Weiss in the Fossies BMW. Their problems were compounded by an early puncture. Despite the BMW sounding healthy, Vos and Weiss had hardly got into their stride when a damaged trailing arm and prop shaft put paid to their race.
There was early drama at the front of the special vehicle field. Donaldson prologue winners Evan Hutchinson and Donnie Stassen got lost 10 kilometers into the race and handed over the lead to Lance Trethewey and Carl Wichmann in the LT Earth Movers bat. Behind Trethewey and Wichmann, there'd also been a change in running order in the production vehicle category, with Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin moving ahead of Dion Fenter and Ian Palmer, who were in early retirement in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux. Taylor and Birkin were next to pick up a puncture, and that moved Lance Woolrich and Ward Huxtable up a notch or two in the Ford Racing Ranger.
With Hutchison and Stassen dropping down the field, Nick and Ryan Harper were second among the special vehicles in the Motor White Revo. The Harpers were around a minute behind Trethewey and Wichmann and were being chased by Quinton and Kali Silwald in the Elegant Field bat. The retirement of Fenter and Palmer and the Taylor Birkin puncture had also promoted Hicho de Bruin and Henry Hicho up the production vehicle running order in the Micron XL Toyota Hilux. When Taylor and Birkin got underway again, they were immediately passed by the PHB bat of Marius and Yolinda Fourie, with the Castrol Toyota crew stuck in the dust.
After losing a place to Marius and Yolinda Fourie earlier on in the race, Nardus and Louis Alberts were going along steadily in the Rapsa bat. They were more than 3.5 minutes adrift of the leaders and being chased by Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst, who had enjoyed a good morning in the Ford Racing Ranger. Special Vehicle Championship contenders Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson were also making steady progress in the Atlas Copco bat, whilst reigning champions Jannie Visser and Yorks Leroux had also enjoyed a good morning in the International Truck Toyota Hilux. They had moved ahead of Vos and Howie in the second of the factory team Castrol Toyota Hilux entries. Vos and Howie were right behind Visser and Leroux, but at times were forced almost to a standstill by clouds of dust.
Class D leaders Louis Weichelt and Marek Besadenhout were on the fringes of the top 10 in the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser. They were looking for their second win in a row and swept past Archie Rutherford and Fani de Villiers. A little further down the road, Finnacha Fani's off-road debut came to a disappointing halt, with the mechanical problem sidelining the SA Warranties Nissan Navara. Rutherford and de Villiers were not alone and were to be joined on the sidelines by Class P Championship leaders Colin Matthews and Alan Smith, who retired when the Century Racing CR3 lost a rear wheel.
Toyota Desert Race winners Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy now at control of Class P in the Regent Racing bat, and a little further back in the field, Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens were handily placed at the head of Class E in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux.
6 years ago, it was dubbed the season's most bizarre match. On Wednesday, both teams will hope to avoid red cards, bans, stretchers and own goals in their quest to start the season well and leave a lasting impression of what's to come. When Chelsea host a newly promoted Reading, the Barclays Premier League, it just gets better. Live and in HD and after 20 years still on SuperSport. Broadcast brought to you by MTN, everywhere you go.
SBK for the fan of fast. Live and exclusively on SuperSport.
This weekend on SuperSport. On Saturday, the Gunners are looking to get their Premier League campaign off to a blistering start when they play Sunderland. Then, the Box will want to give Argentina a less than warm welcome to the Rugby Championship. And it's a bone-crunching Absa Currie Cup encounter at the coast when the Sharks host the Lions. Then on Sunday, with a series and #1 ranking on offer, the fourth day of the final test is set to be a defining one. It's Waffa Waffa in the MTN 8 when SuperSport hosts Orlando Pirates in the first leg of the MTN 8 semi-final. And tennis's best square off for crucial ATP points in the final of the Western and Southern Financial Group Masters. Let our floodlight lead the way this weekend on SuperSport.
On the way back to race headquarters and the designated service point for a compulsory 15-minute halt at the end of lap 1, the course also took in Tweelaagte and Bepong. In keeping with the historical trend, the route was once again spectator-friendly, with viewing points packed with huge crowds. Out on the route, nothing had changed for Du Plooy and Janse van Vieren in the RFS BMW X3. They still had a clear road ahead of them, and chasing after the young Pretoria crew, Trithuri and Wichman were still at the front of the Special Vehicle Brigade in the LT Earthmovers bat. After an early puncture, Taylor and Birkin had fought back strongly in the Castrol Toyota Hilux, and despite a hiccup or two, Quinton and Kaliso Volt were a solid second among the special vehicles in the elegant fuel bat.
At least one local resident was totally disinterested in an off-road race where an interesting production vehicle battle was unfolding between the Toyota Hilux of Hugo de Bruyn and Henry Hugo and the Ford Ranger of Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst. On the run to the designated service point, only seconds separated the two crews, whilst Van Staden and Lawrenson had also made up ground in the Atlas Copco bat.
Production Vehicle Championship leaders Duncan Force and Rob Howie were still battling with the dust problem. On the credit side, the Team Castrol Toyota crew had regained a place by finally finding a way past the international truck Toyota Hilux of Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux. Dust was now proving to be a handicap for Visser and Leroux, and they were being hauled in by the Rubicon Toyota Hilux of Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus. The Vormerand Start crew had done well to overcome a 5-minute penalty for arriving late at the start of the Donaldson Prologue and were being chased by Rubicon teammates Lodebrain and Rian Hreiling in the X-Factory Ford Ranger.
The Regent Racing bat in the hands of former Sun City 400 winner Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy was still leading Class P, with Louis Weichelt and Maret Versaiden in control of matters in Class D in the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser. Both teams were looking for back-to-back wins after successes on the Toyota 1000 Desert Race. The route often took in tranquil pastoral scenes, with a windmill proving for a good vantage point. The Liqui Molly Zarco Challenger in the hands of Northwest crew of Neil Mayer and Joseph Lewis was still running strongly, with the pair looking to snap a sequence of 2 non-finishers. Veteran former South African champions Hannes Grobler and Henny Testerge were looking to bounce back after a non-finish on the Toyota Desert Race. More disappointment was in store for the pair, who were again destined to be listed amongst those who didn't see out the distance.
KwaZulu-Natal crew Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell were again putting up a workmanlike display in the Gibson Racing Porter, but the drive of the morning came from Mark Corbett and Julian Hardy, who started from the back of the field in the Century Racing CR4. While they were on a charge, Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens were quietly taking control of Class E in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux.
The first car into the designated service park was the RFS BMW of Deploy and Henk Janse van Vieren. Deploy and Janse van Vieren had made the most of being first car on the road and had a lead of just over 4 minutes ahead of the Team Castrol Toyota Hilux of Taylor and Birkin.
It was amazingly dusty this morning. The first sort of 5Ks was absolutely terrible. You sort of can't even get going, but as we managed to pass guys, so it got a bit clearer and we sort of got into some air. We had a puncture that cost us about 4 places, but we managed to make that up. We're lying third overall now, about 4 minutes behind Christian, so we're happy.
Up and down the designated service park during the compulsory 15-minute stop, the dust problem was a common theme.
Yeah, the dust is just terrible. Dust is unbelievable. But I must say, I think it's for everybody the same. We're lying mostly so many places to get punches in it. Lots of people were unlucky this morning. So we're lucky to pass a couple of guys, so yeah, we're going lucky things.
After the heat and dust out on the route, the designated service park was a temporary haven for the crews. 9 of the first 10 cars in the designated service park were from the Premier SP class, with Class D leaders Louis Weichelt and Maret Besaidenout the odd couple out. They were 9th overall in a race being controlled from the front by Christian Deploy and Henk Janse van Vieren.
Special vehicle category frontrunners Lance Trethewey and Carl Wichman had a handy lead at the service park, but it had not been an easy morning.
Right from the beginning, Lance found that there was oil leaking. The cap hadn't been closed properly on the brake fluid, so his pedals were all full of oil. He battled a bit with the brakes and the clutch and that, but we persevered and it's paid off. We've done very well. We've passed a lot of guys, a lot of breakdowns, a lot of punctures. You know, Lance has kept it on the road smooth. There's a lot of stumps and a lot of rocks in the road and that, and yeah, it's fast. We enjoy it. We're having fun. So a bit of a glitch in the racing, but well, that's what it's all about.
In the Atlas Copco pits, Johan van Staden also had things to say about the dust.
Wow, man. If I can describe the dust, it's impossible to describe how much dust we're actually facing at the moment. The slightest mistake comes from the amount of dust. You can't see the route and you're off. The GPS records too slowly. I think that the matter is here to stay in the car, keep it on the road and getting no punctures, bring it back here. And whoever does that is the guy who's going to get that best result over this week.
Premier Class A cars dominated the top 10 in the special vehicle category at the halfway mark. After dropping out of the top 10, prologue winners Evan Hutchison and Dani Stassen had fought their way back to 7th. At the top of the leaderboard, Trethewey and Wichman led by nearly 5 minutes from Quinton and Kali Silvold, with Fuller and Murphy leading Class P.
On the final loop of the race, nothing changed for production vehicle category leaders Deploy and Janse van Vieren. Being first on the road meant no dust problem, and the RFS BMW crew took full advantage. Behind them, a late puncture scuppered any hopes Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin had of catching the X3.
It was also plain sailing for special vehicle leaders Trethewey and Wichman in the LT Earthmovers bat. An impressive performance from the KwaZulu-Natal crew saw Trethewey set to follow in the footsteps of Sister Marcel, who won the Sun City 400 in 2006 with Brandon Harkers. The KZN crew were well clear of Van Staden and Lawrenson, who had quietly worked their way into 2nd place in the Atlas Copco bat. Duncan Force and Rob Howie had moved into 3rd among the production vehicles before a 15-minute penalty dropped the 2nd Castrol Toyota Hilux down to 7th overall and handed a maiden podium finish to Loda Brain and Rian Kralin in the Rubicon Ford Ranger.
For Photography can also be dusty work, while in the motorized bat Venom, a determined effort had seen Hutchinson and Stassen fight their way back to third on the road amongst the special vehicles. Hot on their heels were Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in a Ford Ranger carrying battle scars. The top 5 finish gathered in valuable championship points for Visser and Badenhorst, with the Ford followed by the Rubicon Toyota, crewed by Lovers Cockney and Erasmus, who had fought their way from 31st on the road to a sterling 5th place.
An interesting special vehicle tussle had also developed between the Rubicon Bat of Peter Ruthven and Leander Pennard and KZN crew Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell in the Gibson Racing Porter. They were 4th and 5th on the road and separated by just over half a minute. The two special vehicles were closely followed by the Regent Racing Nissan Navara of the ever-consistent Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson. The Nissan was followed by Class D winners Louis Weichelt and Marek Versadenhout, who clinched a second successive win after triumphing on the Toyota Desert Race in Botswana.
A superb performance from the back of the field saw Mark Corbett and Julian Hardy clinch a podium place in the Century Racing CR4. Kutsia Lovers Cockney and daughter Sandra gradually wore down the opposition to win Class P in the race on Exarco. And another impressive performance saw Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens score their 4th Class E win in 5 outings in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux.
A perfect weekend for rising stars Christian Deploy and Henk Janssen van Vieren ended with the RFS BMW pair sealing a maiden ABSA National Championship victory. Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin were runners-up in the Castrol Toyota Hilux for the 2nd race in a row, with the final podium place going to Free State crew Loderbrain and Rian Hueling in the Rubicon Ford Ranger.
Yeah, definitely. It's a maiden win for us, and it was good to win on our own ground, you know, and to start from the top and then just keep it together, you know, not win because of other cars' demise, you know. So it was a very, very excellent weekend for us. So the Henk was on the money with the navigating, and the crew put some hard work in, and with some help from above, everything kept it together.
There was a 2-minute cushion for Deploy and Janssen van Vieren over Taylor and Birkin, and then a big gap to De Bruyn and Hueling. A close Class D tussle saw Weichelt and Versadenhout edge out Johan and Werner Horn by only 19 seconds.
It was also a big moment for Lance Trithui and Carl Wichmann, with the KZN crew wrapping up their first ABSA National Championship win. 2nd place took Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson to the top of the championship, with a tremendous performance securing a podium finish for Mark Corbett and Julian Hardy.
Yeah, it's the first time. It's good. Yeah, we had a good race today. Carl did an excellent job in the car. You know, I've never won a national championship race before. I've raced for a long time, and for us, and today it was good. You know, we had a couple of problems, but we overcame it, and yeah, we got it in front.
In the end, less than a minute separated Trithui and Weichmann and the steady van Staden and Lawrenson. Persistence gave former Blue Bulls rugby player Kutsia Lovers Cockney and daughter Sandra the Class P win ahead of Corbett, Henley Moore, Century Racing Jimco.
Next week in Inside Off-Road Racing, we go behind the scenes and chat to Vinniger Fani and meet up with Trek Motorcycle ace Brian Capper.
Catch all the action right here on Supersport, your world of champions.